Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. BAM Weather Meteorologist Brett Waltz here, giving you a long-range forecast update, guys. I hope you all are having a fantastic Friday morning. Really going to focus in on the mid-August pattern with today's update. Talk about some critical trends to watch and also some risk. This is a lower confidence forecast period, I would say, due to some conflicting pattern drivers. So we'll talk about that, kind of talk about what to keep an eye on over the next week or so as we head into that mid-August time frame. But until we get there, we've got heat in the short term, but then a pattern change coming as we work into the first week of August. It's going to feel a lot cooler. It won't be nearly as humid. It will be a break from this really hot and humid pattern that we've been dealing with for much of July and really June as well. The next 7 days will continue to run hotter than normal across the eastern half of the country, especially the next several days, but you can start to see some of that cooler air creep into the northwest plains as we work further down into this time frame. With the gradient in temperature, some cooler air to the north and to the west, some warmer air east, we have continued rainfall chances, and we just really have not ever seen a shutoff of moisture as we've gone throughout the growing season across the central part of the country. There have been periods in the eastern ag belt where maybe the northern Ohio Valley or the lower Ohio Valley into the Great Lakes have had dry time, but for the plains it's been pretty persistent, and then up into parts of the upper Midwest. And you can see more of that over the next 7 days. Nebraska, Iowa, we had more heavy rain in Kansas this morning, and then some beneficial rains into parts of the Ohio Valley, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, northwest Ohio, southern Michigan. Some of those areas in there have gotten a little bit drier, so beneficial rain for areas further off to the east. Now, as we head into the week 2 time frame, we get that front to move in, we cool things down. You can see here, majority of the ag belt will average out seasonable to cooler than normal in that first week of August, and the moisture will subsequently shift a little bit further to the west, a little bit further down to the south. So more rain opportunities for the southern plains. Oklahoma, Texas, you're a bit drier the next 7 days. You'll see more moisture return to the forecast. Continuously active across Nebraska, Kansas, and parts of the Dakotas. But if you're in the eastern ag belt, Great Lakes, parts of the Midwest, into the Ohio Valley and the northeast part of the country, should see a drier pattern, at least for a time. I think especially the first 5 days of August, there's going to be an opportunity in here for a dry window, and again, likely cooler and less humid as well. Before we get to that, we still have heat to deal with. And if we take a look at the high temperatures as we work over the next several days, again, for the most part, not record-breaking. We will have some record-breaking high temperatures across the southeast part of the country the next few days. But for the ag belt, it's hot. It's just not necessarily record-breaking in terms of those high temperatures as we roll into early next week. And then you can see by Wednesday, Thursday of next week, look at that cold front come in, high temperatures in the 70s for much of the primary growing region, a big change from the start of the period. I will say, though, we look at record-breaking lows, this continues to be more of an issue. More widespread, record-breaking warm, low temperatures as we work through the weekend. You can see it especially across the southeast part of the country, but even into parts of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley as we work into early next week. Numerous days of these very, very elevated low temperatures in the mid to upper 70s, even some spots not getting out of the 80s as we go through the middle part of next week for the southeastern quadrant of the United States. Taking a look at just the overall pattern evolution here, again, you can see the heat in the short term. In some cases, you're 5 to 10 degrees consistently above normal for several days. But then look at this cold front as we roll into next Thursday and into next Friday, well below normal temperatures into next weekend from the Central Plains through the Ohio Valley. A big change here in terms of the temperatures as we go throughout this period. And again, I think that this is probably some of the coolest air that we've had in quite some time for some of these areas, and certainly some of the driest air with the lack of humidity as well. As we get towards the end of the first week of August, I'm actually showing the run from yesterday on the EPS. I am concerned that the overnight EPS trended too cool late in the week 2 time frame. I like the idea of starting to moderate the cooler air and bring back seasonable to maybe even slightly above normal temperatures by the end of the first week of August, and probably more so into the second week of the month. We've talked about for some time the potential that warmer than normal temperatures can come back sometime in that second week of August. So I would imagine that by late week 2, we're moderating the cooler air, starting to warm things back up, starting to get a little bit more humid again by the end of that first week of August. Couple of reasons for that. Number one, if we take a look at our SOI, which is the Southern Oscillation Index, that's just simply the difference in pressure between Darwin and Tahiti. It gives us a good idea whether we're feeling more La Nina-like forcing or more El Nino-like forcing. And you can see that pretty consistently here over the past couple of weeks. It's been in that La Nina forcing territory. It's been positive, and if I look out ahead with the forecast, it looks like it should stay positive ahead. What will that mean? Well, number one, you can see this drop here correlates to our cold front as we close July and start August. There could maybe be another front we need to monitor. It's not as extended here, not as notable, but another front towards the end of the first week of August that could keep things more moderated for a time, not notable heat. But as we get more consistently positive with this down the road, we continue to feel that La Nina-like forcing, the warmer air should come back. If you look at the correlation for August in terms of a positive SOI with that La Nina-like forcing, it's warmer than normal for much of the country, especially parts of the upper Midwest and into the Great Lakes in this region in here. And so the idea here is as we feel more of this down the road, we should trend back warmer for the middle part of August. What does this mean in terms of precipitation? Well, it's actually a drier signal. The blues here indicate drier than normal risk for the Central Plains and into parts of the Ohio Valley. Little bit hesitant for this widespread of a dry idea, given the Atlantic Ocean forcing we've touched on numerous times throughout the summer, and just the persistence of moisture in the plains. But it could at the very least open the door for maybe parts of the eastern ag belt to be less active heading into the middle part of August. Another factor here is our tropical forcing. We right now have upward motion thunderstorm activity in the western Pacific. We should start to move that more so towards Africa and the Indian Ocean heading into the start of August. That's MJO phases 1, 2, and 3, where the thunderstorm activity will be moving, which impacts our jet streams all across the world, and including the United States. We take a look at what this could indicate. MJO phase 1, which we should be feeling kind of the first week of August, maybe into the start of the second week of August. It's a cooler signal. You can see that here across the eastern part of the country. No notable warmth with this type of a pattern. But watch how things evolve heading into MJO phase 2. With maybe some La Nina-like forcing, we start to warm things up, probably initially across the northern tier of the United States. And then as we go into phase 3, you get more of this widespread warmer idea, again, especially across the Great Lakes, the upper Midwest, parts of the northern plains. And so that is in line with the SOI forcing that we just highlighted. So we have some support there. Another factor that I want to keep in mind is our global wind state. We're positive for the first time right now since February, so we've been consistently kind of in that La Nina territory for the last 5 months or so, but it looks short-lived. And a couple of things I want to note about this. Number one, EPS has way overshot how high this global wind state will actually go. Here's where we're at right now, the latest observation. The EPS is trying to say be at plus 1.5. We're actually all the way down here. And so we're not going nearly as positive as what this model would indicate. And then you can see what happens into early August. We should be dropping the global winds again. What does that mean? Well, the last time this happened in late June, we had a big heat wave that followed it. And so I think it's a sign of what's to come of a hotter trend down the road. Now, I think the only caveat, the only concern with this, how fast does this actually happen? If we linger positive a little bit longer, that is a cooler risk to the forecast, and later in this video I will highlight what that would mean based off one piece of model guidance that tries to do that. Regardless, as we start to feel our weaker global wind again, the La Nina-like forcing, should get hotter. You can see that correlation right here, probably for the middle part of the month and beyond. The year that I found that matches the global winds the best, the tropical forcing the best, just the overall pattern drivers is 2021. I think it's very, very close, especially with our global winds and our tropical forcing. One of really the only few good matches in this particular time frame, and I really like what its forecast is, or what happened in 2021 and what it would indicate for our forecast for this year. You can see the most above normal temperatures kind of across the northern tier of the United States, generally warmer east, maybe some cooler air in the mountain west, and still some heat on the immediate west coast. In terms of moisture, it's not all that dry. I highlighted that concern. It's been active, but it does have some drier pockets for parts of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, and I think that if there is an area that gets a little bit drier, it's likely in that region. Messier precipitation across the plains and active up the east coast. If we take a look at a couple of other years that have popped up, 2013 and 2010, we add that on to 2021 for precipitation, I think you can see that idea that I mentioned in terms of where drier risk would be a concern pretty well. But I will note, and I want to make this very clear here, this is not substantially drier than normal of a signal. This is slightly drier than normal, not as frequent rain chances, messier rain chances. It's not bone dry. I don't think it's any kind of like a flash drought type of scenario here. Taking a look at some model data varies, but if we look at the upper level pattern on the EPS Weekly, I actually think that it shows this pretty well. It actually matches if we go back over to MJO Phase 2 and MJO Phase 3. I actually think that it shows this progression pretty well as we go throughout the weeks 3 and 4 time frame. So we do have some data support for this type of an idea as well. And really what started this idea that the heat could come back was the North Pacific. And if you take a look into the second week of the month, especially the 9th and 10th and beyond, the hotter signal returns in the North Pacific, and it lingers overall warmer than normal, maybe not as intense, all the way kind of through the middle part of the month. And so with all that in mind, all those different pieces here, guys, the signal, the idea is a warmer than normal pattern. Now, I don't necessarily think it's as notable as this mid to late July hot period or even the late June hot period that we've had. But I do think the much above normal temperatures could be more so into the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes, where before the heat had kind of set up more so in the eastern third of the country, in the eastern ag belt, further south into the east. So could bring in more heat a little bit further north than prior timeframes. In terms of moisture, there's that corridor we highlighted that could be a little bit below normal with precip, not as frequently active as where we've been, but still leaving activity and above normal precip across parts of the plains and up the east coast. Now, I do want to highlight risk, because if our global wind stays positive, more El Nino-like longer, that is a cooler risk to the forecast. If the tropical forcing slows down, if we linger in MJO phases 8 and 1 longer, that is a cooler risk to the forecast. There's a very, very fine line here, guys. If those slow down at all, then you almost have to flip this temperature pattern. There are huge differences. Whoa, sorry about that there. There are huge differences in what that evolution would mean towards our outcome. And East Asia is a cooler risk. It would suggest the cooler air can linger longer. I think the biggest risk to the forecast here right now is that the cooler air would try to linger into the second week of the month longer. Kind of the first 14 days would be cooler, and the warmth wouldn't show up more so towards the third week of the month. Obviously, as we went through, there's more support that the heat comes back by the 9th or the 10th of the month or so. But this is a risk that I want to highlight and I want to monitor very carefully, because we also have data that tries to hint at that. The CFS Weekly tries to keep the cooler air around further to the east. It tries to build in some heat in the northern plains down the road. But this is exactly what I would expect to happen if those pattern drivers slow down. And so I had to mention it. It creates some lower confidence. Obviously not what we're going with right now, but I do think it's something worth monitoring and a risk to keep an eye on down the road. It's something we will continue to talk about and highlight as we get a little bit closer to this period. So guys, that's all that I have for today's forecast. I know a little bit of a longer video to kind of break this down for you all. I think the bottom line is sometime that second week of August, getting a little bit hotter again, following this cooler and a little bit less active period for the Eastern Ag Belt. For the plains, probably continuing to stay active as a whole. Guys, that's all I have for today. Hope you all have a great weekend.